Good evening, everybody. I'm Carolyn Perry. I'm the director of the Center for Teaching and Learning, and very happy to welcome you all here, and so glad you could join us. We have a very special guest this evening, Michael Cohen, known as the Tech Rabbi, who is here to share with about teaching and learning. Sorry about that. As you can tell, the host has the ability to mute all of us. But please watch your microphone, make sure you stay muted throughout the duration. And then also you might want to put your Zoom on speaker view, because that will allow you to see our speaker instead of all of our great faces here. So you might want to go into that view. Special thanks tonight go to the Education Department and the Education Association for all their support of this great event. And especially I'd like to thank our SGA. I'm very, very impressed with that group, because it was because they really got the vision for this lecture and for the follow-up that will happen afterwards to infuse creativity into all we do, but especially into our teaching and learning. And I just want to thank the SGA for their huge support of this event, and we look forward to working with you as we go forward. So I will now turn the program over to Professors Barry Baumgartner and Tammy Inzer, and they will introduce our guest. And take it away, Tammy and Barry. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Dr. Inzer, and I'm an assistant professor at Westminster College. And welcome to everyone here this evening. I wanted to start this evening off with a question. I wanted you guys to think for a moment about a book that you read that you were so excited about that you wanted to talk to somebody as soon as you read it, or a movie, or a YouTube video, something that you saw and you were like, wow, and it inspired you and you just had to talk to somebody about it, or maybe even a TikTok. It's not my world, but I'm sure it's in some of yours. So you saw it and you were like, wow, and you had to share it with someone. That's what happened to me. This past summer, I am a member of ISTE, and I found out about Michael Cohen, our speaker this evening, also known as the Tech Rabbi. And I read about his book, and so I got it, and it's Educated by Design. Several of you have read it or are reading it. And I was so inspired by it when I got done reading it, I had to talk to somebody about it. And so I shared it with Dr. Baumgartner. I was like, oh my gosh, you have to read this.
So I'm Dr. Barry Baumgartner, and I'm an associate professor at Westminster, and I'm the coordinator for Digital Blue. And I got so excited when we got that book that I took it to Nate and the crew with our WAT committee and said, this book is so exciting. We all need to read this book. We need to think about how we can be creative and look at creativity in a different way. And so I got so excited about that. And now we are wanting to share that excitement with you.
Yeah, and so when I was reading it, one of the things that really inspired me and challenged me was to think and reflect on my own teaching practice. And some of the things that the Tech Rabbi, Michael, talks about is about functional fixedness and how we can move no matter what career we are in. It doesn't just have to be teaching. Whatever career we are in, how can we challenge ourselves to get out of our functional fixedness and to try new and different things, especially in this world of innovation. And the other thing that really inspired me was the whole concept about failure and about how to see failure in different kinds of ways, more as learning opportunity than something that's really negative. And so those are just a few of the things that he really inspired me from reading the book about, and I'm sure he's going to share more with us tonight. So we are so thankful that, Michael, you were able to spend some time with us. Michael is awesome. He is a father. He is a rabbi. He is also a speaker and has spoken at ISTE conferences and all across the nation. He is also a designer and started out as a designer and then has taken that work that he's learned and moved it into education. And so most importantly, he is an awesome educator and he teaches kids right now. So he's in the field right now. And he's also working with us nationally and people nationally too. Okay, so we are really excited to have you, Michael. We're really excited to learn from you and learn with you. And so, as you say, ignite the spark. Get us started. Take it away.
Thank you so much. So grateful to be here. I apologize in advance if my internet is not as friendly as I want to be. LA is where I'm based, and internet right now is just not my friend. But I will share my book because I thought that was a cool way to intro. Designing Your Work Life is a book from two design thinkers at Stanford's D School. This is their second round. The first is Designing Your Life. And I think that when we look at the way that we are trying to improve the lives of learners, improve our own craft as educators, we really need to look at the world of design as a systematic process for problem solving. And I'm really excited to share with you over the next 45 or so minutes. What I'm really excited about is the Q&A. That's actually my favorite part. We've tried Q&As in the beginning before, but I feel like the keynote ignites that energy, that curiosity that will then hopefully lead to some really exciting questions. And I want to start this story with an email. I received this email from a student, and I receive a lot of emails. What I do right now with students at the high school that I work at is I run a entrepreneurship and STEAM incubator. And I've been doing this for 3 years, 11 years in education. It's my second career, but my first love. And this email might not seem like a standout email as you look at the text. But what's so powerful about this email is that this is what I call the perfect student. This is that high achieving, top GPA, award-winning essay, all around incredible academic scholar. And if you look at this email, you might not see it, but it's right there in quotes. And it's not possible. I sat and I reread those words over and over again. There's someone who has demonstrated an incredible amount of success. They're winning the game of school. And they still have this not possible mindset. And I worked with this student at lunch. I worked with the student after school. You see, the student couldn't take my course because I refused to make my course an honors class, and it would lower his GPA. So he wouldn't take the class. But we spent a lot of time together. And when this student graduated, he sent a text message. And I was trying to remember when I graduated, like the moment I graduated high school, what was I doing? It was not texting my teachers like, hey, like I'm finished, I'm free, but like let's meet. And the irony of the text message is the student basically says, I have finished my high school experience, everything's safe, college acceptance, we're all good. Now I'm ready to do all of the things that you were doing in your class with your students. And I want to know if we could get together. I said, absolutely, but you're buying lunch. So a little bit about me. I am an educator. I'm a director of innovation. As I said earlier, 11 years in education, spanning K-12. I started actually in higher ed. I taught design classes at Fashion Institute in Los Angeles. And I never looked at myself as an educator. I was simply trying to support the next generation of designers to not make the same mistakes or run the same sort of gamut of challenges that I went through, mostly because I was a self-trained designer. And I was using, there's no YouTube, there was no Google. I was using Dogpile and like random tutorials that I could find on the web, how to learn Photoshop. Like even like Photoshop for Dummies wasn't really a staple yet. And what I realized through this falling in love with education is that we need to reach out from the world of education to industry professionals, to business professionals, to then bring it back in. And to show our students that the knowledge, the skill, the capacity for research, for analytical thinking, for really deep processes of problem solving can be relevant to the real world without forcing it. I don't think everything needs to be attached to the real world, right? When I taught my son how to ride a bicycle this summer, I didn't say get on the BMX motorcycle because like we got to do this the real world, or get ready for the 100-mile century because that's the real world, right? He didn't want training wheels. And he's like, I'm just going to do it. And I was like, you know what? You're going to fall on the concrete. You're going to brush it off, and you're going to do it. And there was failure, there was challenge, but it all begins with mindset. So as I start, I just want to throw this QR code because I think that one of the things that I missed, especially now in pandemic land, is I used to be connected to all of you in person, and I don't get that now. So the best I could do is at least scan this QR code and let's stay connected. Let's share through. You can ask questions. You can shoot me an email. I can share resources. This QR code will pop up towards the end. But the main thing I think in education that is most needed right now is community of collaborators, community of creativity, and really community of support. And especially if you end up in a place where you feel like an island of innovation, you want to be able to have your PLN. You want to be able to have your group that you can connect with, that can re-inspire you, reignite, and hopefully be a place where you feel like you are supported. So this is Educated by Design. Educated by Design is not the list of creativity. It is not the, I remember when I was crafting this list, someone said like, could you make it like the 10 commandments of creativity? I said, look, somebody already had the commandments. His name was Moses, and I don't reach that level. So we're just going with 10 principles. And there are other principles of creativity, but I feel that if you bring these together, if you weave these through this process and also appreciate them as standalone experiences, you can really start to build that creative capacity and also be able to support and mentor others in lifting up their own creative abilities and also that creative mindset. So we're going to go through this journey, and we're going to start with the mindset. And the mindset is so important. It is so critical for anyone that is in their academic journey. There is this mindset piece that needs to happen, and it has to start with the following. Creativity, and all my slides are going to be beautifully illustrated. At least I'm told they're beautiful. So I don't want to sound like I'm bragging, but I did go to art school. I am formally trained in printmaking and design. And it's not the art set. It's the way that I use my expression, my abilities to try and communicate information. It's a problem-solving mechanism. And when we look at creativity, a lot of times we look at it as this application, this artistic, it's culinary, it's musical. There's creativity in leadership. There's creativity in mentorship. There's creativity in how you connect with people. There's creativity in how you listen and understand. There's creativity with empathy. And we're going to go on that journey. And I hope that everybody, at the very least, if there is one call to action, it's that you strive to feel more creative and believe in yourself just a little bit more than before you heard this conversation, and hopefully participated in the Q&A. Because like I said, the Q&As are the best. You can give me those hard questions. You could do the creativity crossfire. I'm ready for it. And I'm energized, and I hope you're energized as well. In education, what I find is that we spend a lot of time in this pursuit of knowledge and this application, but we are missing this process of discovering the abstract and the unknown, trying to figure things out where there is not a curricular pathway, that there isn't an answer that's in the back of the book or an answer somewhere, that we just have to all find that one answer. It's really important for us as we're looking at ways to bring not just the creative thought process, but creative experiences into our worlds, whether we're in the classroom or we are ourselves educators at the moment. However, wherever we are in this journey, it's really important for us to be open and curious about the abstract and the unknown, because that is where those breakthroughs happen. That how might we, I wonder kind of moment where your students see that you might not know the answer, but you want to find it together with them. And sometimes that's a rarity in education, because we as educators feel we are charged, we are responsible with the academic success and the leveling up of the young people that we are in charge of, and we don't want to let them down. But in the real world, there are plenty of people that do not know the answer. And if we can find it out together, we're all better for it. And so that belief piece, and it's way cooler in person, where I'm like, all right, I got you cornered in this auditorium, you can't leave, and the tech rabbi's throwing out the belief, what's going to happen? But it's the belief in ourselves. It's this belief that we have this ability inside of us and we just need the nomenclature, we need the terminology, we need to know what to look to find what we already have, as well as this belief in others. In the incubator, I'm watching students time and time again, fearful to share ideas, fearful that someone will steal the thing that they feel they have this major breakthrough. And it's because they don't have this belief in the capability of others. They don't know, because most of the time their collaborative experiences, which we'll discuss in a little bit, are more cooperative. And really it's all cooperative to just get to that grade, get to the A. What do I need to get an A? That's like my favorite question. You took creativity and business innovation in the entrepreneurship incubator, and the very first question you asked me on the first day of school was, what can I do to get an A? And I said, well, you could do something that you didn't think you could do. That's what it is. Something that can take it to a level where you say, wow, I didn't think I could do that. And could you do that in 16 weeks? Could you do it in 32? So this process is all rooted in something that I've been really fascinated for a while. I have a giant poster of it on my wall just to remind me. It's called Ikigai, and it is a Japanese approach to finding the sweet spot in life. And I think as educators, we have our sweet spot. We know it's our strength, it's our passion. We love it. At least I hope we love it. And the world needs it, right? Every time I hear anyone, I don't know if you're on the Clubhouse app, but I'm on it and I'm obsessed with it. And it's giving me access to a lot of professionals. And every time I hear someone say, technology might replace teachers, I just go back to my own graduate school experience looking at this research around education and technology replacing educators. And it's like, will the TV replace educators? Will the DVD replace educators? And here we are, we're still here. And it's really because of that empathy piece. There is a human connection that no robot, no matter how sophisticated, will ever have empathy. They will be able to mimic it, but it will not be a pure soul connection between two humans that are trying to help the success happen in this learning environment. So being able to help our students find that, I know the bottom one's a little bit of a sore spot, but you know what? Like we get paid because the other three parts of the Venn diagram are driving us, right? If you just want to make money and hate your life, you could work for a hedge fund. They make lots of money. So this process of that sweet spot is really trying to find something amazing, finding this opportunity, but it's about that abstract, that unknown, seeking it out. So here is a slide that I love. It's dear to my heart, but not only is it outdated, I don't know how long I can even show it before it's like, look, 2020, like we want to forget 2020. But the World Economic Forum put this scope of skills that are needed for the fourth industrial revolution. And in 2016 or so, I started sharing this and it got a lot of good shelf life. And every year I'm reflecting, how close are we to it? And they updated it. But it's important to look at where we were to see where we're going. And I think that for me, the great part about this is that creativity, which barely made the list in 2015, is now a third place contender. But it should never be more than third place, because creativity is a driver. It is not in of itself anything, right? I mean, even a famous artist, I took enough art school, art history in art school for more than I needed. And it's very clear learning about these artists, they were trying to showcase the challenges of the time. They were not just trying to create pretty, beautiful pictures. They were trying to express insight. They were trying to present and communicate beauty. But it's all about that critical thinking and problem solving. And as the World Economic Forum updates, I was like, good, we are moving way too fast right now with technology to do any more 5-year plans. There's no more 5-year plan. If you get a 2-year plan, you are lucky. And you see that the growth versus the decline is that being able to focus less on the way we do physical things and more about how our mind works and how we work together and how we have a better intuition, a better awareness, self-awareness, awareness of others, being able to analyze things and being able to leverage technology to get things done, to be able to do those things that we need to do and to support the needs of young people trying to be successful in using technology tools. I still get a kick out of this digital native. There is no digital native. They're just people that are born into this very confusing network of apps and computer applications and pieces of hardware. And the only thing that's not stopping them is, as Professor Enser had said, is functional fixedness. It's our experiences that we build up where, well, we've always done it this way. I know that it works, and not being able to think that there might be another updated, improved, more productive process to get that same result or better. So looking at that, one of the things that I'm doing at the incubator school is, like, besides trying to scale this beyond just a really great school and a really great, small group of young men at the high school that I work at, is really being able to help young people figure out how to apply and gain these skills so that they can showcase, that they have a portfolio, they have something to present besides for a Word doc resume, something that they can create, that they can showcase. And for the students here, you're already at your university of choice. Maybe you have another couple stops on your journey in graduate school, maybe to pursue your doctorate. But what about that dream company or that dream school, or being able to create your own company or your own school? For the students that I support, obviously I don't want to limit them, but it's both the entrepreneur mindset and the intrapreneur mindset. But it all goes back at the end of the day, no matter what you do, to these core skills, these 6 of being able to think critically, to be able to look at information and say, wait a second, I need to take a look at this. I need to cross-reference. I need to validate resources. I need to be able to leverage that knowledge, to communicate it effectively, to be strategic, and then, of course, to just deal with that complexity of life, that complexity of process, and be able to connect with and really do great work. And those that are screenshotting or taking pictures, I will share this slide deck, and you do what you will with it. I'm happy to share all of my resources because that's what I do. So how do you build that mindset? What are the processes? And that mindset, that confidence, is that you got to be open. You got to be open to try things. You got to be open to the experiment. Now, that doesn't mean don't plan. Plan as much as you can, but do not get stuck with analysis paralysis, where you just can't because it might not work. You can't because, oh no, what will happen? What will they say? What will they think? If you are trying something, if you are giving your students a voice, if you are allowing them to be part of the stakeholder of their education, then they are going to be okay if things don't exactly work out exactly as the perfect plan that you have crafted. And it has all of the checks in ways of pedagogy and curriculum and standards and integration and philosophy and all these things that I'm not saying like neglect, but we got to try, we got to do, and we have to explore. So I want us to try a little challenge right now. The one on the left, I'll share a story about, but the one on the right is honestly it's one of my most favorite little activities. And what I love about it is that it really taps into that functional fixedness. The paperclip challenge is a 3-minute exercise. If you are by yourself or if you are with a group, it looks like some of you, have people next to you. I see a cute little baby. The baby can also contribute and connect, right? But the paperclip challenge is about expanding your imagination and really seeing how can you apply the traditional or the expected and kind of shatter it a little bit and be open to other possibilities. Right now, the World Championship Paperclip Challenge, reigning champion is my now senior. He's had this title for 2 years. He has 48 ideas, 48 ways, 48 little trinkets, little things that he has taken the paperclip and transformed into. So I want you all to take a look at this paperclip, and I want you for the next 3 minutes to come up with a list. It could be a list in your head, it could be a list on paper, Google Keep, wherever you like to make lists. 3 minutes, how many different little objects, and you have 3 right now because you can see you got a hook, you got a ring, you got the frog. So you only need to have 45 more to at least tie him. So I'm going to set my timer and I want to see what you got. So 3 minutes starting now. So we're about halfway through this 3 minutes, no pressure. I believe you all have this. I know that someone is going to unthrone my student. He's waiting. He's like waiting for the WhatsApp message. Did they do it? Am I still champion? So I got just under a minute and a half. All right, 15 seconds. Two and one. So if you just want to put in the chat your number, please, let's see what you got. You know, we're using, you know, the honor system here. So excited to, oh, I like that. Professor Baumgartner, big Chiefs fan. I think a lot of folks here are super excited. No, I'm in LA, you know, the Rams, you know, we had our chance. Sad face. Awesome. Ooh, 23. Woo. It's a high, these are high numbers. The 20s. This is awesome. All right. So I'm just gonna let that run. And I wanna move into sort of the context. This is a powerful exercise. Sometimes, you know, you could spend 5 minutes on it, but what the process is, and I heard about it first at the most famous TED Talk of all time, right? Sir Ken Robinson. Actually, I think I just described it as if I was there. I watched it on YouTube. I was not there. That would have been cool. But Sir Ken Robinson, you know, one of my distant mentors, someone that probably has had the most impact on me in my education career. He talks about this paperclip challenge, and he says, why are we limiting the possibilities? We said paperclip, and we define a paperclip as this little metal piece that is just about yay big. But what if the paperclip was 200 feet tall and made out of foam? And my student, he like ran this course of, you know, he's like random shapes. And I'm like, okay, you know, kind of, you know, expected. But then he says a chair. And I was like, a chair for who? A grasshopper? Like, what do you mean a chair? And he's like, no, what if the paperclip was really big and it could fold out into this sort of kind of like lounge shape that you can kind of just chill in it? And I realized at that moment that is functional fixedness. It's being able to take something where you would never think that the shape and the pliability of a paperclip could be applied in a different context to improve, to make something more interesting. And any of these exercises, and you know, I have a lot of these resources. Some of them I was inspired by, you know, the D School, by different design thinkers, by different designers, and then others I've sort of kind of taken and hacked and made my own. But the process that you see is that the more experiences you have in life, the bigger barrier this functional fixedness is for you, where you wouldn't even think. You wouldn't even think. There's a famous challenge called the candle problem. And you know, it's all about context. It's all about delivery. It's about story. So when I read about it in Daniel Pink's Drive, I said to myself, like, this is amazing. The candle problem. How do you get the candle attached to the wall without dripping wax on the table? And you only have tacks and a candle, and it's like, what, like, and some matches. It's like, what's going on? And I was so obsessed with this. And I realized at one point, like, I think I learned about this at some point, and I don't know when. And turns out I went to my educational psychology book from grad school, blew the dust off the cover, went to the back, found this reference and looked, and sure enough, I had highlighted just a couple pages before. But it's the purpose and the context where something really important, really interesting did not resonate with me because it wasn't presented in a context that had relevance. And so sometimes as educators, when we are sharing things that are important knowledge, important awareness, an important strategy or application, if it's not connected to the student where they are in life, in their reality, it's missed until they read about it in Daniel Pink. And then they think Daniel Pink is really cool and not you, except you were the first one to show them this thing. So we really got to work on that packaging so that we don't miss out on those kinds of connections. So the second thing over here is this Combine and Innovate Challenge. And this is a resource that I could share with the professors and give out to everybody. It's a process of combining two random objects. And we actually did this in a little bit of an exercise with Professor Ensor's class. I actually met with them a couple weeks, like a couple months ago, maybe 2 months ago, sometime I think in December. But either way, it's this process of finding relationships and connections between objects, but also the value and the empathy around who uses them. And in the end, students, I mean, really anybody, this is an adult activity as much as a student activity, is this process of really solving problems and bringing some sort of fun and quirky goodness into the world. So, I always love the construction worker challenges of like, I give them the drill, and then the drill is this like ginormous industrial like jackhammer, but then they need coffee, but then they're like, they're doing some sort of process like, on the 10th floor of a building project, and they can't go down to the bottom. So then they have this object adapter that hooks on, and let's say coffee maker, hook onto the drill and use the friction and the heat of the drill to cook a little espresso shot. And it's like, this is not going to market. This is not the next startup. This is not the next Amazon, but they're thinking about people. They're caring about people. And that is the process of really building out creativity as a problem-solving mechanism. So this paperclip challenge, super fun. I've yet to have anybody who says, I don't like the paperclip challenge unless they only got one idea, but there's no way because I gave 3. So I already set you up for success so you don't feel that kind of resentment when you don't feel like you were successful at it. So this process of design can also be super crazy, super wild. Highly recommend you scan this QR code. There is this totally awesome random website where it just randomizes design a blank for a blank. And literally design a spreadsheet for a cat is probably pretty hard. I'll be honest, I don't have yet my own creative confidence to embark on this challenge. But when I saw this pop up in the generator, I said, this must be in my slide deck. This must be in the story. So being able to showcase that process of being able to break down these barriers of functional fixedness can sometimes be done in a quirky kind of random way so that we don't feel like there's a lot at stake, right? So when we talk about redefining learning, we're not like, well, let's get rid of this, like, the most important research paper of the entire semester and like turn it into a project-based learning experience. Besides being like not practical, I wouldn't advise that. I think that there are baby step moments where we can spend some time exploring that abstract without, disrupting things too much, because then that kind of goes back to that experience around failure. And that failure process of being able to understand that failure as part of a journey versus a destination, right? So FAIL was a really popular acronym. I don't see it too much these days, but FAIL was like first attempt in learning, never give up, first attempt in learning. And I was like, there's something fundamentally wrong with this. Never give up, but like, what if you're doing the same thing over and over again? And I looked at the word failure and I said, wait a second, we got more acronym. First attempt in learning unless reflection exists. Being able to look back and reflect and refine and improve is not something that you find in education. You do work, you submit it, you get the grade, and sometimes you get to redo it, but there's no reflective process. There's no roundtable discussion. There is no one-on-one with the teacher and the student to really look at how can we improve the lives of this person. this young person that is learning, and not just say, well, yeah, go redo it and I'll give you some extra points. Going through this process of failure can sometimes be like this. And, I'm allowed to make fun of myself, but in my class, one of the funnest activities that we have is design a chair. And it is in the business context of understanding and evaluating materials and resources and how much you have. There's some really cool math where they're trying to figure out the angles and the structure. There's some physics, because when I fall hard, which fortunately I only fell with the one that was like 1.5 feet off the ground, and not the one that was the 3 feet chair. I was like, okay, this could be my end. But this process of giving students this chance to explore, and look, not everyone has a makerspace. Not everyone might say like, this applies to my classroom. So you got to hack it a little bit. You kind of got to look at these crazy ideas and try to filter them in a way where it can be scalable, it can be impactful, and that we can attach and connect the different learning experiences that we want our students to have to these types of experiences that are hands-on and physical. When students pitch, students being able to understand that you have an idea, you think you think you've created this next amazing product or service. But when you do market research and you actually have high school students, I didn't do market research. I didn't do any research until grad school. And being able to have high school students survey 500 people and ask questions in a way that will actually give them data that they can evaluate and make decisions, and realize that they actually failed at what they think the problem was, but now they have an opportunity to improve. It wasn't this end like, oh, we failed, we didn't know, so let's give up. It's improve, it's adapt, it's go through this process, right? The famous, Edison found 10,000 ways to not make a light bulb. That's not what inspires me about Edison. What inspires me about Edison is that he wasn't trying to invent the light bulb. He was trying to invent the ability for the world to see in the dark. He was trying to solve a problem because he felt that he could positively impact the world. So being able to do that requires empathy. It requires this process of understanding people. And one of the funnest ways that I think for empathy is using the design thinking process, because it's really about designing and creating an experience with that person that you're trying to support in mind. And it begins with empathy, and it goes through a process of empathizing to then define the problem or define the opportunity, and not look at the problem or opportunity and then connect the person that you're trying to support to that problem or opportunity. Going through that ideation phase of just coming up with wild ideas, then trying to build a prototype, and then testing it. And in the words of Seth Godin, who I'm a big fan of, linchpin, right? Ship it, get it out there, put it out into the world, and really try to make that impact. Get your students to be thinking, to be applying, and to really try to discover opportunities that are right there, because they're all around us. I use a couple different strategies as well. Some for younger learners, kindness by the dozen, which is just like observation, building empathy through sympathy. They understand sympathy, and then they can shift it to empathy, because I can't tell you how many adults I do consulting and workshop work with, and we talk about empathy, but they're evaluating sympathy and not empathy. Empathy is understanding the thinking, saying, the doing, the feeling of another person based on their reality. And when you understand who they are and their reality, so then you don't start to create that reality for them. Resources will be shared as well. One really cool activity that I work through with my students is the 5 whys. And you ask a question, why? It's actually the 5 whys are based on a statement. Entrepreneurship doesn't have a role in the traditional classroom. Why? And you go through these whys, and it disintegrates your statement and allows you to think much deeper. So I definitely recommend anyone, Google search the 5 whys. It's a super amazing process, and it will allow you to reflect yourself, but also engage in discussion and get students to really think deeply about information and about different pieces of content that they interface with. And that brings me to collaboration. I'm a big fan of collaboration. I'm a big fan of short-term and long-term collaboration. One of the things that I love to do with students is to take things like poetry, right? The homework machine, and go through that Shel Silverstein poem and realize that those students can evaluate that and then create their own homework machine. And they can express their creativity, their teamwork. And this is a 15-minute project. It is a rapid prototype challenge. And they go through this process in 15 minutes. They have to create the homework machine through a brainstorm, through physical construction, and then they have to present it. And in the case of these students, they have to explain to the principal of our school why this should be the official homework machine of our high school. Collaboration could be with experts. And I think that this is it's possible with high school students, more possible in higher ed, is being able to connect students to experts. So when you're looking at biology, freshman biology, learning about the human body, I know anatomy can be something that's more at the senior level, but with biology, understanding the brain. Well, let's bring in a startup founder that is using technology to impact health. So we're learning about the brain, we're learning about the heart. So, you're learning about the heart? Well, guess what? This startup founder uses artificial intelligence to analyze echocardiograms to identify the different parts of the heart and the health of those different sections of the heart. Oh, you think that artificial intelligence is some sort of like magical, machine that just like does awesome things? Oh, well, guess what? We are going to actually have you go through the process of training the AI algorithm by manually identifying the left ventricle. Yes, we're using child labor. They signed off. We were transparent, but they ended up contributing to that massive database of echocardiogram analyses that have to be done manually before they can be done algorithmically. So bringing in experts, getting them to connect, collaborating with colleagues. This is actually a game design challenge where you have to teach empathy to others through game design, through game experience. And in the end, the best game of all time that I saw was a game, and I'm a big fan of Monopoly. I bankrupt my wife. I hold all of my children's properties hostage, but it's like the epic capitalistic pursuit Monopoly, right? So here, this group created a game where you have resources. You cannot win the game until you share a resource or support another person to advance forward, understanding their resources, their reality. I was like, wow, this is absolutely amazing. This brings me joy. And this process of collaboration isn't just with colleagues or with, students interacting with experts. Sometimes the students are driving the collaboration. This case here, this is a podcast that I and a student created. In the beginning, it was like my podcast because I had the experience, but then it was his podcast. He interviewed world-renowned experts. I'm not going to get into the details because I want to make sure that we get to that Q&A, but scan this QR code. There's some amazing, amazing experts that we interviewed. My all-time favorite is the first woman comic book artist to draw a major comic book character. And her story and her journey, being able to overcome those hurdles and not look at the world as linear, but just this creative process that she went through was super awesome. And that leads me to the biggest hurdle in creativity, which is how do we get our ideas out of our brain and into the world in some sort of act, some sort of action. And one of the things that I think is really important for young people to understand, it's important for us as educators to understand as well, is that when you look at creativity, you can't look at it as creating something from nothing. Many times, the most creative process, the most creative innovations of all time, whether it's in project, product, experience, is you have something and you turn it into something more. That process is, I think, what creates the best type of creativity, because there's a reference point. Instead of this pressure, I have so many students who are like, I need to invent something. I want to create this like crazy, this crazy hand truck that uses magnetism to be able to lift, 700 pounds easily. I'm like, I will do whatever I can to help you with that process. I'm not sure if you're up for that. It takes more than 3 hours a week, during class time to build such a crazy invention, but there's this pressure. And one of the things that I see in my students is that, we talk about business, we talk about entrepreneurship, and then I talk to actual entrepreneurs, successful business people, and I say, like, what do they need? And no one says, like, they need to start a company, or like they need to be, incredible at financial analysis. They say strong communication skills, strong writing skills. My students hate that. Right. I tell their, especially the seniors, I tell their English teacher, like, hey, guess what? This, this $1 billion startup founder just said the most important thing is writing. So, keep delivering for them. Right. It's important to understand that these entrepreneurial experiences are about taking those skills of analysis, application, writing, communication, presentation, storytelling, and amplifying them so we can build those skills. Right. You could do a startup pitch for a character in text in some sort of novel, some sort of book. You could use any sort of process in this entrepreneurial experience, making a mission statement, an elevator pitch for some sort of, historical figure, whatever it is. If you got to get coverage, you got to get through that content, but the way that you do it so that the student can spit back the knowledge and articulate it in an informed way, it is something that is possible. It's just a little bit hard, and it requires a little bit of experimentation. So I just want to run through a couple, just exciting moments in my incubator. I'll start with Ambrosia, which was a student that wanted to create easy access and educational resources for those that are in, challenging socioeconomic, state and where they're based, to be able to get the best quality food and not go like the fast food route because it's convenient and cheap. But they're short on time and they don't have time to cook like 45-minute, meals from scratch. So he was going through this process of creating that, and his ability to talk with experts, connect with, directors of food banks, being able to research and to survey people and to really understand the needs of people and not just what he thinks was incredible. Latest, actually, this group right here is trying to actually raise a pre-seed startup round. They are juniors in high school, and they're trying to raise $100,000 for their political education platform. They are going through this process of developing and understanding and building and designing because they want to help. They want to change the world. They want to make it better. Another group of students that are trying to create a AI-driven planner that will help you best organize your time to study and prepare when you need to. And not just like, well, let's study really far out or let's wait till the last minute, but really based on your reality and your workload. But this is the moment. It's not building businesses. How many high school students are going to build a startup and it's going to succeed? It's one in a million. But this moment where this student has this confidence, this passion, and the person that is listening to him is engaged and smiling ear to ear. Giving our students more moments like this, where the work that they do, the skills that they apply, the knowledge that they put into this is presented in a way where they are just in love with the process. And however they use technology, at the end of the day, it's a tool. And this image is still as relevant as it was the day I drew it. We have to shift these 20th century tendencies. Instead of saying, well, we're just like 20th century tendencies with 21st century tools. It's not pulling the cart before the horse. It's putting rockets and roller skates on it and thinking that you're technological, thinking you're advanced because you can get there quicker. But is it meaningful? Is it engaging? Being able to have students create content that showcases their knowledge and being purposeful, right? Same sixth grade world history book that I used when I was in sixth grade makes a much better stop motion stand for an iPad than it does as a resource for knowledge. Being able to make that learning social, being able to connect with others, being able to create, being able to build, being able to design, and to see the processes really come alive. And being able to have that problem-solving mechanism. And yes, we have laser cutters and fancy 3D printers and all of these different types of power tools, but I love duct tape and cardboard. I don't know why. I'm just a big fan. I think because it's easy, it's cost-effective, and it's super impactful. But students can also build in the digital landscape. They can build out app experiences that are going to solve problems. They can create and demonstrate that they understand how people can experience things and be improved in their lives with technology. And to be able to create that community, being able to create that process where technology becomes something that allows them to do and not just consume and experience. And as we wind down this talk, I think the hardest one is that permission. Don't wait for you to feel like an expert. Be open to the idea that you might be able to get them to level 5, but you can support them and believe in them to level 25. And by giving your students the resources, helping them understand how to use the internet to find, everything is on the internet, but it's disconnected. Just because there's Google does not mean it's any more connected. It's just easier to find it, but it's not connected. So being able to go through that process and believe that your planning, your process, do your best to be ready, but perfection is the enemy of done. It's also the enemy of start. So don't wait for permission. I say it, I make video content, and then my wife teases me that like I'm not listening to my own advice. Do not wait for that moment that you feel that you are ready. I have this rapid prototype challenge that I run through with educators and students. I'm actually considering it in the workshop, so I don't know if there's any ability for anyone more to sign up, but it's not about making an app. It's an app prototype process so that you learn how to solve problems through the app development experience. And so teachers realize, this might not look like much, but instead of creating an app, what they realized is there is a way to support student organization. There is a way to support new teachers that are coming into a school for the first time and have no idea what a copier machine is, let alone how to become part of the culture. There are educators that have Lesson Builder 5000. And then I say to them, you don't need an app for that. There is a way to do that with existing software to help your colleagues design the most engaging and creative lessons possible. But you needed this process of feeling like you were making an app to have it be impactful. I have students that create processes where they're literally using flex sensors to program movement and understand that they could use this type of process to help in sports rehabilitation. But it didn't start with, let's build a robotic arm. It started with the question, how could we use technology to support somebody at rebuilding themselves after a sports injury? So that process of making creativity hands-on, by being able to create that process where we are able to express, we are able to communicate, we are able to design, and we're able to put our soul into it. The soul piece is so important. It is this exploratory process where we as educators are challenged with finding ways to infuse relevance authentically, to create experiences where they feel like we're preparing them to be great. We're preparing them to do exciting and meaningful things, and that they need those strong literacy skills. They need those strong analysis skills. They need those strong research skills. And I know that, trying to disrupt the canon of literature can be very controversial, but I think that sometimes we have to look at how are we providing new avenues for our text, new avenues for our content to make that meaning for our students. So whether it is an after-school experience or an elective, or even 20% time in your classroom, which you should definitely check out, made famous by Google and FedEx, 20% of the time for Google engineers, for Google staff to work on interesting projects. And because of 20% time, we have Gmail, which I still think is the best email of all time, as far as a client. So this process is really important because when we look at what's possible with our students, we see that they're able to do amazing things. I had a Shark Tank style experience for my students in the spring. I was a little sad that it was remote. I wanted to be in person. There's so much energy when we're in person. I'm super extroverted, so I feed on the energy of connecting with people. And our students, I realized, technology is a tool. It just connected us to 3 judges that never could have been in person supporting our students and giving them feedback on their innovation and their imagination. And for them to present their content, to be able to share the thoughtful problem-solving mechanism that they go through, and to be able to say, I have a solution that's going to help the world. It's important. And I'm going to finish off with humility, because I think that it's something that's missing a lot of the time when we talk about raising up young people, supporting learners, is how do we go through this process of humility and gratitude, and getting young people to realize something. What is humility? Humility is not about thinking about yourself less. It's about thinking about others more. And I did not make that up. I still have not yet figured out who originally said that. And until then, I don't want to misquote. But you should just know that I didn't create that quote, but it's a pretty awesome quote. Being able to think about others more. And by doing that, we can show our students that we might have small doses of creativity and experiences, but you can turn that 20% time into something much more. If you look at the process of experiencing the world as a classroom is just a space to learn, and we're not bound by the four walls. The classroom can be found everywhere if we look at it right. And then that turns that 20% time into 100% time. So I'm really excited. I know I said 45 minutes and then I was like, oh man, but I don't want to race through this, because I love this story. I'm super passionate about this. And I hope that this has allowed you to have some more context to what creativity is, that you feel a little bit more creative, and that you're ready to ask some really exciting questions for the Q&A. I'll leave the QR code up, and I'll give it back to my gracious hosts as they bring that Q&A into the purview. So thank you so much, everybody. Grateful for these moments.
Unmute myself. Thank you, Michael, very much. So we have a question. Dr. Bum and I have a question that we wanted to kick it off with. Dr. Bum's going to start it off with the question. We
actually have one from a student.
Oh, okay. So I won't ask mine first then. What's the student one?
So mute yourself.
Okay, I got to mute. Sorry.
So Katie just asked a question. Katie Wood, do you want to go ahead and ask your question, or do you want me to ask it for you?
You can go ahead and ask it.
I'll go ahead and ask it for her. So she had a question about how do you get students to be able to ask professors how they can be more involved and more innovative, and not in a disrespectful way, but how do they allow students to be more innovative and engaged in their own learning?
It's a great question. I would say the first step is it should be done during office hours. You definitely don't want to create a potential opportunity in a public setting where it might be perceived as not respectful. And I think that the more delighted and excited that you are as the student, I think that the professor is going to be open to like, well, are you going to support me if they feel that way? What are the reasons that there is an aversity to change? Is like, no one says like, I don't like change. What is the core problem is that if you feel that there's something you do well, and you might not have confidence in other areas, but this is like the one thing that you feel like this is something I know. I know my craft, I know my field, I know this content, and it's so important for my students to know it. And someone comes and says like, hey, let's like do some crazy tech or like something that's going to disrupt and make that one thing that I think I do well worse. So I don't want to change. But if I feel supported, if I feel like you as a student are going to be an ally, be someone that's going to support me and ensure that this is successful, I hope the professor is open to it.
Okay, so Michael, one of the things that I struggle with, wait, can you hear me?
It says you're muted on the screen, but I can hear you. Okay.
Okay, well, one of the questions that, or one of the things I struggle with as a professor is in trying to change my teaching is my mindset, in that I feel like I am the one who needs to know, like because especially at the college level, students are paying to come to Westminster College, right? So I struggle with, I'm the one who should know the content and share it with them, right? And I do know things, I'm not saying that, but I think in so doing, that limits their creativity in a sense when I'm the one giving all the information or their ability to think critically or whatever. Anyway, how do you overcome that? That's what I'm saying. How did you overcome that? Or do you struggle with that? And being like the person, the teacher needs to know the information and give it to the kids or the students.
Yeah, it's a good question. It's a great question. I'm excited. So far, we're 2 for 2. So you can provide an experience for the student to be challenged to construct their understanding of the information in a different way besides for, a paper or some sort of traditional means of evaluation that won't put it in a context. And, I talk to a lot of students, the whole spectrum from first, second graders all the way to, students in grad school. And, students can tell the difference between like, hey, we want to try to really make you a better thinker, to like, hey, I'm not really like prepared and like, let's just kind of do something cool. Like they could tell the difference between that. And so I think if you are providing some context with, look, there's content we're going to learn, and I'm happy to accommodate those students that would much rather just study for a test the night before and then get formally assessed. But anyone that's interested in really becoming a stronger analytical thinker, maybe connected to the real world, like where you are not a sucker for fake news and you are not, quickly manipulated by social media or different pieces of content that are thrown at you because you lack the skill of analysis and research. So you might say to them, hey, you know what? Like, I want to build you up, not just with knowledge, but with capacity. But I think that there has to be a flexibility. And it's also like, we're not asking anyone to totally change the entire experience. It's moments where you'll feel victory and you'll check in and everyone will have feedback where you will all be able to kind of feel like, how is this going? And then do better, try it later. Maybe don't try it that way. But I hope that answered the question, because I think that there's a balance that needs to take place.
Oh, I gotta be, yeah, thank you.
So there are a couple of questions over in the chat. Nate Leonard had a question for you. Given your artistic training, what do you see as the role of traditional arts training, whether in visual and performing arts, in helping to teach creativity?
That's a good question. I think that there's always going to be a place in the world for arts. It's incredibly hard and competitive. I mean, before education, I honestly thought I was going to be a famous artist and designer. I ran a creative business. I was a creative director, and I had art shows in Los Angeles, New York, and it's hard, especially as I started to have a family, raise a family. Like my kids can't eat paint; they need to eat food that requires money. So there is a challenge with that. As far as making it a career. But I think artistic wise, we have a space right now with the way that technology is evolving where, I think I'm a big fan of analog. I have, I love printmaking and using my hands and painting and things like that. But the digital space of being a designer and really looking at the traditional arts, visual performing as, if you want to see performing arts, open up TikTok. If you want to see visual arts, open up Instagram. There are ways to build skills, to communicate and express ideas in a beautiful way that I think are much more applicable to business professionals, to educators, to really anybody, that I think people are going to see more and more of that emphasis on arts, on philosophy and things like that, versus some of these more traditional routes that, even the field of law is going to be disrupted by AI and machine learning. And, Jack Ma, the CEO of Alibaba, he said, learn art, right? If you want to combat artificial intelligence, practice being an artist. So hopefully hopefully we all will explore that artistic process a little bit.
Another question over in chat from Chris Cox on the flip side of the question regarding asking professors about being more hands-on. How would a professor best approach asking their students what it is they want to be engaged hands-on with in the classroom without sounding like they're ill-prepared?
Nice. Good flip side. You know, I'm a big fan of anonymous surveys. Sometimes they are uncomfortable and sometimes they're eye-opening. And I put out surveys all the time to students. They could put their name down if they want, but really survey what are they curious about as far as application, ways that they could imagine this class connecting to things that are important to them, and really trying to build that culture where professors and students feel like there is a support system. And I think a lot of the times that it has to happen outside of class. Class really has to be that place where we come and we get the core goals of the course accomplished, whatever's in person, right? I know there's a lot of work done outside of in-person class, but I feel like that survey piece for me, I don't know if it's the best answer, but it's just a personal answer of this is how I've seen success happen.
Okay, so I'm going to ask the last one here, and if anyone else has a question, go ahead and post it in the chat, or you'll have a second after this. So a student asked, how do we respectfully tell a professor we don't feel challenged or don't have that chance to be creative, innovative in class? Does this come back to the showing excitement in class about a topic?
Interesting. This student sounds awesome, because I think in general students are like, what can I do to get the A? So that's exciting to hear a student with that kind of energy. So I guess there's two ways to kind of approach that question. One is like for a personal, like for the one that's asking the question, but then like, are you looking to create, a disruption of the culture and the process that will, impact beyond your experience? So to answer the first part from a personal level is like, just go the extra mile, right? Double down on your output and like really catch your teacher off guard. Your professor's like, wait a second, I asked for A and they gave AAA. So what's going on? And then maybe you could have that question after you've already accomplished that level. As far as, impacting it on a greater scale, it's hard because I don't think that there is a professor that is looking to like not deliver a challenge for their students. It could be that, and this goes back to that empathy. Wait a second, there's me in this class. There are others in this class, others that are taking different classes than me, others with different realities. And maybe over the years, this professor has seen a pattern of knowing that this is reasonable. This is a high academic level for students based on their reality where they're at. And so then for you, you have to go back to say, okay, maybe I have a conversation. What could I do extra? Instead of like, hey, professor, change this. Go to your professor. What can I do that's extra? And then maybe that extra could turn into a cool extra assignment that you might not want to have your name attached to, because then your peers might be annoyed that now there's extra work. But either way, I'm using a little bit of humor in this. I think there are ways to do it where you can put your heart and energy into it without feeling like you're going to the professor and saying like, this class isn't hard. Can you make it harder? Like no one's excited or something like that.
May I ask a question with my voice?
Yeah.
Is everybody all right with that?
Yeah, I am.
Okay. I like the paperclip activity a lot. I like your drum set, by the way, too.
Thank you. My kid's drum set. I don't know how to play drums.
Oh, that's still pretty cool. One thing I was thinking about, though, I happen to have a paperclip, and I was like trying to mold it to see, what I like to think of different things. And the thought that came to me is the more I moved it, the less it lost its integrity. It's not as clippy. It doesn't have as much force. And I've been familiar I worked at a place, a school that really hammered in that failure thing, fail as much as you want. But how many times failing or trying, or you talked about it a little bit, but before you lose integrity, and how do you know? I guess my question is about integrity. How do you know when the paper clip's about to break?
I'm super blown away. I've never heard the paperclip challenge applied in such a meaningful way. I've been doing this paperclip challenge for a number of years. I think that integrity is a character trait that is really about your trust output and your honesty and your commitment. And when we talk about doing things that are experimental, things that are, potentially amazing, but such a high rate of failure, at least the first couple times, I'm a little bit obsessed with Elon Musk. I tried to tone it down through the talk. I don't even think actually I mentioned him, but I was on the Clubhouse app and I heard an 1.5 hour long interview from him. And I mean, first of all, I've never heard that much content of him, cumulatively, let alone in one space. And, for somebody that's created self-landing rockets and electric vehicles that can now drive over 500 miles on a charge, without commenting on his work-life balance and, things that he also discussed there. I think that one of the things that came out of that conversation was that when we all believe in the mission, and when there is a culture of support and care, that we're all in this together and we're trying to get somewhere that is going to be amazing, so then we can fail and keep integrity. Because the failure isn't us. The failure is this experience when we're trying to do something greater. So it goes back to look, if you fail, I used to say it's not about failing failing a course or failing a test. And then I saw someone on Twitter that said, I failed biology, I barely graduated and now I'm just finishing my PhD in biology and working for a big biotech company. And I was like, wait a second, that's not supposed to happen, right? That's what I was told by my high school guidance counselor. You got a D in biology. You are not going to ever be part of science. And I believed it. And then by the time I realized maybe it was kind of too late, but for this example, wasn't too late. So I think that when you're part of a group, and if you don't have that internally, if you don't have that in the community, in the school environment that you're at, then you need to tap the internet. You need to find your professional learning network, those people to lean on when you feel isolated and alone, but know that your integrity is you and your failures are those things that you do, that you try, but they are not who you are.
Okay.
Thank you. That was great.
Yeah, and that's a perfect question to end on. Unfortunately, we're out of time. If you have additional questions, we will get them to Michael Cohen, so don't feel like you're going to be left out if you came up with a question just in the last few minutes. But we do need to wrap this up to respect everyone's time. Thank you, Michael, for giving us so much to think about, and I look forward to the conversations that come out of this time with you. We really, really appreciate all that you have given us tonight. Thank you all for being here. We do have some books coming in, compliments of the Center for Teaching and Learning. So if you would like a book, please just let me know and I will make sure you get one. And I just want to thank you all for being here and enjoy your evening. Again, let's party around for Michael as we close tonight. Thank you all and good night.
Good night, everybody.